Welcome everyone and welcome to our participants. I'm seeing some very interesting names as I was kepoing, looking at the people who are on board. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will be discussing something really interesting. And if you're a writer out there, hang in there. We want to hear from you as well. So you have the chance to ask questions and interact with us. We're looking at the role and the influence of social media, particularly with these writers in their careers, as well as, this is Jusia, their personal lives. But before we get started, I thought this would be a nice question to just roll to the four of you. Social media is such a huge part of our lives. The first thing I read when I wake up is I reach out for my phone and then I check Facebook because I'm old like that. I mean, I don't go on Twitter because it's so toxic and noisy, but that's just me. So tell me, we'll start with Marilyn. What is one thing on social media this week, just this week? Today is Tuesday. It's only Tuesday that has affected you in this, today, Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday, that has affected you in the past week. One thing on social media.
Okay, so it's been an ongoing thing, right? So in my community, the queer community, we have had a very heated discussion about the use of slurs and the use of, who gets to be a part of the community. And it's basically, like there are many sides of the debate around like Pam Oi's new play, Fag Hag. So, a collective called them out and called the play out and called the people who are sharing the play out. So, the concept of calling out itself is kind of rooted in social media, right? So, when you call out someone, it means that you kind of make a post saying like, this is all the ways that they are bad and they are a bad person and you shouldn't support them. So there have been a lot of discussions as to how we can make those conversations kind of less harmful and less less calling someone out, but instead, kind of checking in and opening a conversation. And of course, this was picked up by quite a famous writer in the queer community as well. And then, he kind of wrote a rebuttal post, and then there was the process of kind of like naming and shaming the other original posters. So that kind of started off a new wave of outrage, like, oh, you shouldn't do that because it's akin to putting them on blast. So it's all of these, like, who has the power in this situation, right? And who gets to do these things? And of course, like, both parties were kind of douchebags on both ends. But yeah, that's what my community has been talking about.
Thanks, Marilyn. Yeah, that's affected me as well because I had to relearn and unlearn vocabulary in the process. Thanks. Yusuf, let's hear from you. What is one thing on social media that has affected you in this past week?
This past week, this is, I can tell you something about in my native place. Sorry, I will speak in Tamil. Nirmala will interpret in English. Okay. சமீபத்தில் வந்து எனக்கு வந்து ஊரில் வந்து ஒரு முக்கியமாக ஒருத்தர் இறந்துட்டாங்க. அது சம்மந்தமாக எல்லா ஸ்டோரியுமே எனக்கு வந்து த்ரூ த சோஷியல் மீடியா தான் எனக்கு கிடச்சிச்சு. அதனால் வந்து ஐ மஸ்ட் பி தேங்க்ஃபுல் டு த சோஷியல் மீடியா. இஸ் எ வெரி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் பர்சன் இன் மை ஃபேமிலி. அதனால் அதை நீங்கள் சொல்லலாம் நிர்மலா.
Okay, recently, just last week, he lost one of his relatives in India. Okay, and he was able, he knew about the death through the social media. So a lot of he learned about the process. They brought him to the hospital, from what they did and everything through social media only. So it affected him quite badly because of the situation now, and the person died of the new virus, the Delta virus. So it affected him very badly that he couldn't go there, in person and join in, have to be impersonal like this. Yeah.
Thank you, Yusuf, for sharing that. Okay. And it's how ironic it is that we feel that social media brings all of us closer.
Yeah,
but sometimes the closeness also, kind of deepens the pain even more, especially in a time like this. Yolanda, over to you. What is one thing that's affected you this week through social media?
Yeah, so I have to talk about the week before because that's what happened just before that. I started a new comic series, which was something extremely important to me because I felt that's something allowing me to integrate different parts of myself for writing, the creative part of me, and also the coaching, which is my professional development, bringing inspirations and also ideas from there to present it to my audience. But then this week, what has happened with this idea is I had first started my whole series on LinkedIn, and then I was going through a lot of doubt because LinkedIn is where serious people are. And I have decided to be cutish, to talk about some, psychological or mental health issues and also professional development. I know it was a bold move to go against the current. And I decided to make that experiment. I posted for 10 days in a row, and then I was about to give up this weekend, said, okay, let me just stick to Instagram where the comic belonged to. And then, however, 3 people, as I announced, they're saying that I'm going to move back to Instagram, and they said, don't go, I want you here because we love it, it's refreshing. And I think that's really heartening for me, that I understand that people don't only want the same voice, but they find it refreshing, and they tell you that, no, it's different. So yes, we haven't been, commenting a lot, but we want to see it. So I was like, okay, there's something about the different voices I should also to actively seek, instead of seeing how many likes I get, but also to ask people in a more one-on-one personal basis to understand how it is. So I think it was just really important to me that happened.
Thanks, Yolanda, and you're right. I mean, different platforms function differently, isn't it? I find the LinkedIn people are very, very serious, so I think I'm completely inactive on it, but actually that's where business takes place. So I think I should actually be a bit more serious about my work. Okay, Samsudin, over to you. Apakah saya harus menterjemahkan jawapan anda pada petang ini?
Saya rasa saya cakap dengan bercampur-campur sebenarnya, sebab saya lebih fasih dalam berbahasa Melayu. Kita masih dalam suasana pandemik. Saya rasa liputan daripada sosial media tu sebenarnya masih lagi menarik perhatian. Saya rasa bukan sahaja di Singapura, tapi juga di belahan dunia di sebelah Singapura. Perkara yang mengharukan sebenarnya bila saya lihat rakan-rakan sastra tidak dapat keluar, terutama di Malaysia masih dalam keadaan yang lockdown, dan berita-berita yang kita dengar yang tersebar tentang yang tragedi yang menimpa bagi mereka yang tidak menghadapi tekanan hidup, yang ada sampai bunuh diri dan sebagainya. Itu perkara yang amat mengharukan sebenarnya, yang menyentuh dari segi kemanusiaan. Dan di Singapura kita biasa, di Singapura ni kita dalam keadaan terpenjara ni kita masih dapat bebas keluar, tapi kita masih lagi prihatin dengan kehidupan yang kita masih rasa terkawal, terkungkung dan sebagainya. Saya rasa ini masalah dunia yang sedang melanda, dan sosial media merupakan platform yang mana kita dapat berinteraksi sebenarnya walaupun kita terpenjara di rumah kita. Saya rasa dengan adanya sosial media ni sebenarnya merupakan satu perkara yang baik juga yang dapat kita berinteraksi. Itu yang saya rasakan dari hari ke hari sebenarnya.
Terima kasih, Samsudin. Just to translate it to everyone, I think he was reflecting on his friends, particularly from the literary world in Malaysia and in the lockdown that they are facing right now. He's used a very strong word, penjara, which rasa di penjara, which is imprisoned in their lockdown. And I think, however different or similar things are with the problems in Singapore, it's something everyone is facing globally, but social media brings everyone together to face it as one. Betul tak terjemahan saya, Pak Samsudin?
Tepat sekali.
All right, let's get the conversation rolling. Thanks for sharing these things that have affected us this week. I, for one, did a very long post yesterday as a reflection of a ex-student that I had lost a month ago to suicide, and calling for a bit more care with mental health where schools are concerned. And I think that has generated quite a bit of discourse over the past 2 days that people are actually saying this is the way to go. So I wanted to ask you, as writers, how do you actually use social media? Are they points of inspiration? Are they is social media painful? Do you look at it and say, yeah, I don't want to do this, I'm in my world as a writer? Or are you someone that is very dependent and you spar regularly with social media as a writer as well as in your personal life? Let's have Yuan Fei start with this first.
Thank you. So to me, I think I pretty much live on these social media platforms today. And I see that it's helping me in many ways, mostly in two dimensions. One is on the creative expression, and the other one is on engagement. So I have gone beyond being just a writer or poet to use text, because I realize in social media it's about attention. So a lot of times I created videos, I created text, but although the background of all these videos or images is still the text and stories. So I think about how I can communicate so that it goes beyond just being the writer with words. And I really enjoyed that. Especially with the instant feedback from the audience who tell you what kind of things they like and what they don't. And with that, it also comes with that the other aspect, which is engagement. I think there's a real connection with people who tell you they love your content or they don't. They vote with their hands. So you have such a bond. So yeah. So for me, both of these are really positive and supportive aspects for me so far.
Thanks. Samsudin, what about you with social media? How do you use it? And does it give you a similar positive impact or engagement as a writer in the Malay literary world?
Walaupun saya sikit konvensional, tapi saya tak menolak tentang media sosial ni sebab bila saya lihat sebenarnya garapan daripada apa yang saya lihat di dunia luar, bukan saja di Singapura, sebab memberi saya satu tembusan baru untuk melihat keadaan dari segi karakter, apa beberapa cerita yang berlaku. Sebenarnya ini satu inspirasi bagi saya untuk berkarya. Sebab ada kalanya yang perkara-perkara yang tidak kita temui, yang seharian di Singapura tidak dapat kita temui di luar negara. Macam contohnya macam kisah macam pergaruhan, itu lumrah lah kalau ada di Singapura. Tapi kan macam perkara-perkara macam pembunuhan yang kita rasa tak masuk di akal, kadang-kadang membuat kita terfikir sebentar untuk memikirkan apakah gejala-gejala yang menjadikan perkara tersebut hingga menjadi satu pembunuhan. Begitu dengan perkara-perkara yang kadang, terutama isu-isu yang sensitif, bila kita lihat kadang-kadang, bila kita fikir balik, kita amat beruntung tinggal di Singapura dalam keadaan kita hidup dengan multi-racial society. Kita belajar tentang satu kemanusiaan di sini, yang bahawa di Singapura ni punya sistem yang baik sebenarnya, yang mana kita agak prihatin, dan kemakmuran tu itu yang dapat kita lihat daripada social media ni, memberi kita satu perbandingan tentang apa yang berlaku di sekitar kita dan juga di dunia luar.
Thank you. But how do you use it, Samsudin, as a writer? Maybe I'll just translate what you've just said. I think Samsudin says, despite being a conventional person, a conventional writer, he does seek social media as a pair of new lens, a point of inspiration in which he's able to see instances that he doesn't usually see in his day-to-day life. For example, killings, murders, and it allows for himself to raise certain questions that may be sensitive, and it deepens a level of appreciation towards the world that he is in Singapore. But my question is, how do you use it? Bagaimanakah Pak Samsudin menggunakan media sosial untuk sebagai seorang penulis?
Saya lebih kepada berinteraksi dengan kawan-kawan. Contohnya macam kata lebih kepada macam seminar sastra contohnya. Saya pernah diundang untuk live dan saya rasa ada satu interaksi yang baik. Sedangkan kalau kita dalam keadaan yang tanpa pandemik, dulu kita fikir balik, kita rasa agak sukar. Pertama dari segi masa perjalanan itu sendiri. Dan apabila kita cakap tentang soal sastra ni sendiri, sebenarnya khalayaknya tak begitu ramai sebenarnya kan. Kadang-kadang ada beberapa orang saja dalam satu seminar. Tapi dengan ada social media sebenarnya, apabila kita terlepas yang kata untuk menyaksi atau untuk menghadiri, dengan sendirinya benda perkara ni terakam dan dapat diulang tayang dan dapat viewership yang ramai. Jadi saya rasa satu perkara yang baiklah sebenarnya.
So just to recap what he said, he uses it to interact. And as a writer, there are opportunities, especially in this pandemic, that we can't meet face to face. Actual seminars and discussions such as this. And in truth, the Malay literary world is a small one. Betul, Pak Samsudin? It's a very small world. But through social media, we're able to grow that already small audience. And then when sessions like this are done, it can be put on repeat and more people can benefit from it. Marilyn, what about you? What are your how do you use social media in your life as a writer, as well as perhaps in your personal or social life? Unmute yourself, dear.
I don't have any more words. Okay, so I was saying, like Yolanda, I am basically online 24/7. I get most of my engagement, and in fact, like make new friends through social media. And this is also because I'm kind of a shut-in, and I'm very socially awkward in real life. So, the first time I ever, got to find out like about the arts or even queer communities, or which is also a big part of my writing, was through the internet, right? So even before the advent of social media, there were forums, there were blogs. So all of these things kind of informed my practice as a writer, like who I am. Yeah, so I don't know how to. I engage with people through social media, and I think because I'm an indiscriminate and very promiscuous kind of artist, right? So I like that you can put anything you want on the internet and have it sort of like exist in that categoryless space, right? So you can do a video that's kind of a shit post that's also sort of like maybe a musical leaning towards like a musical song or whatever, right? So all of these things are very nebulous, right? And you can easily sort of like make a niche for yourself on the internet, and especially through social media. And I think part of the fun of social media is, of course, looking at your own digital persona, like who is the person that you want to be like. When you meet certain artists or whoever, and you say, oh, they're so different in real life, or they're so pretentious or whatever, right? And I kind of enjoy playing with that. It's like your online persona is a place to be kind of who you want to be, but amped up, right? So like I take the opportunity to dress up insanely, or say the most ludicrous things, and it's like, oh, let's see how far we can push this boundary. So for me, that's what social media does.
That's interesting. I'm going to be very capo and say, how different is your online persona from your real "if I meet you for coffee tonight" persona?
I think that I tend to be a lot more hypersexual online, as well as, I guess, sort of like blatantly obnoxious and queer. And I think that part of that is also a lot of the people who are interacting with me publicly are also my friends, right? And they kind of enjoy that kind of humor, so we enjoy that kind of banter. But I think also part of it is like my personal responsibility to make sure that I don't exist as like a respectable writer. I mean, like, I fuck that, like I don't want to be that. I want to be a filthy queer, right? So I think that is also like a political choice that I've made as a writer and an artist.
Great. Thank you. And Yusuf,
Yes.
I'd like to hear from you, because social media just happened like yesterday, isn't it? I mean, I don't even remember the internet when I was in university. I must be really old. And when we had email in uni, I was, wow, we could do this. And then we had dial-up modems at that time, and IRC. I mean, that's me. And with you, with social media at this time and age, how do you use it? And what are some difficulties or exciting moments, for someone like you, Yusuf, as a writer? How do you use it?
Yeah. என்னுடைய குடும்பம் ரொம்ப பெருசு. எல்லா பிள்ளைங்களும் வெவ்வேறு இடங்கள்ல இருக்காங்க. அவங்களையெல்லாம் நான் பார்க்க முடியாது. அங்கே என்ன நடக்குதுங்கிறதும் தெரியாது. என்னுடைய சன் யங் ராஜா is a celebrity in rap. This one is a very big rapper, and he is a very big celebrity also. அவருடைய ஃபேன்ஸ் எப்படி இருக்காங்க, அவருடைய ப்ரொஃபஷன் எப்படி போய்கிட்டு இருக்கு, இதையெல்லாம் கூட நாங்கள் இந்த சோஷியல் மீடியாவில் தான் நாங்கள் பார்த்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். இதை சொல்லுங்க நிர்மலா, அதுக்கப்புறம் மற்றதை சொல்கிறேன்.
He has a big family, a very big family. So he's a rapper, very well-known rapper.
My son.
Yeah, his son. And so to keep in touch with his son, like he uses social media. Social media enabled him to keep in touch with the progress of his career, his son's career, what he's up to and everything. So he can keep track on his son's move. Social media helped him a lot for this.
அடுத்த நான் ப்ரொஃபஷன் என்னுடைய டீச்சர். நிறைய ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு வந்து இப்போ நான் வந்து ஜூம்லேயே நான் வந்து கிளாஸ் எடுக்கிறேன். அந்த ஜூமில் எடுக்கிறது அவங்களுக்கும் கொஞ்சம் ரொம்ப ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு ரொம்ப கம்ஃபர்டபுளாக இருக்குது. ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட் எடுக்கிறதுக்கு பதிலாக ஒரு குரூப்புக்கே நம்ம எடுக்க முடியுது. சிண்டா ஸ்டெப் இதுலேயும் நான் வந்து டீச்சராக இருக்கிறேன். நிறைய ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸை வந்து என்னால் கவர் பண்ண முடியுது. நிறையா ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு என்னால் ஹெல்ப் பண்ண முடியுது இந்த சோஷியல் மீடியாவினால. அதனால் வந்து இப்போ எனக்கு நான் ஒரு சீனியர் சிட்டிசனுங்கிற முறையில் நான் ஒன்று இந்த சோஷியல் மீடியாவை நான் விரும்பணும், இல்லாட்டி அதாவது வெளியே போகணும். நான் வெளியே போயிட்டேன்னாக்க இந்த சொசைட்டி என்னை ஒதுக்கிறோம். அதனால சோஷியல் மீடியாவில் உள்ள எல்லாத்தையுமே நான் கற்றுக்கிட்டு என்னுடைய ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கெல்லாம் ரொம்ப பெனிஃபிஷியலாக அவங்களுக்கு எப்படிலாம் சர்வ் பண்ணணுமோ அப்படி நான் பண்ணிக்கிட்டு இருக்கேன். அதுக்கு சோஷியல் மீடியா ரொம்ப ஹெல்ப்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்குது. எஸ், நீ சொல்லலாம்.
Okay. He said that just now he said son, right? So his two daughters also in other countries. So to keep in touch with them and the social media help him. Other than that, he's a tutor. So he's in the STEP program for Sinda, where he teaches maths, chemistry, and physics, and advancement and things. So social media has helped him to reach out to more students to teach them through Zoom, Facebook, and everything. So all his research he does for the subject, everything he uses social media to do. Because he's old, he also he said that there's two things he can do. He can either stay away from social media or just adopt social media fully, because he can say half he cannot do. So it has helped him a lot in his tutoring and his family.
Thank you, Yusuf. That was very heartening. I have an 84-year-old father who writes funny things on my Facebook posts because I really don't know, and then I have to delete it. Sometimes it's really like, what are you saying? You know, like, hello, how are you? And I'm like, and then he comes out of his room and he says, can you delete that? I don't know what I typed. Great. I mean, you know, this is the thing that I want to ask as well.
Okay.
Sometimes on social media, yes, you've pointed out very good things about social media, but what do you do as writers when there is a lot of noise? For example, Marilyn, I mean, the whole week with the discourse on fag hack. I mean, for me, it was, and I don't say noise as something negative. I'm just saying, oh, it's quite overwhelming and overbearing. And I'm sure this also affects some people when a particular issue is being discussed you know, at length, and it gets a bit noisy. You know, I mean, just recently, maybe about 2 weeks ago, the issue with People's Association and Sarah Bagharib, you know, and then people started coming in and saying what is racism and what's not. How do you manage this when there is noise? So go ahead, Mr. Yusuf, if there is an encounter with noise on social media that you feel is affecting you, how do you deal with it?
ஓகே, இது வந்து எனக்கு ரொம்ப மனசுக்கு கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டமாக தான் இருக்குது. இது மாதிரி இந்த ரேஷியல் ப்ராப்ளம் வந்து சிங்கப்பூரில் அப்பப்போ பேசப்படுறது வந்து ரொம்ப மனசுக்கு கஷ்டமாக தான் இருக்குது. ஆனால் சிங்கப்பூர் கவர்மெண்ட்டை வந்து நான் ரொம்ப அப்ரிஷியேட் பண்ணுறேன். எனக்கு அது வந்து ஆரம்பிக்கிற அந்த டைம்லையே அதை க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிடுறாங்க. ஆனால் இதெல்லாம் வந்து என்னுடைய ரைட்டிங்கை பாதிக்காத அளவுக்கு நான் பார்த்துக்கிறேன். எனக்கு என்னுடைய நேச்சரே என்னன்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னாக்கா, எவ்வளவு பெரிய சூழ்நிலையாக இருந்தாலும் என்னால் தனியாக அதை அஃபெக்ட் பண்ணாமல், அதனால நான் இன்வால்வ் ஆகிடாமல் என்னால் எழுத முடியும். இந்த நாய்ஸஸ் இதெல்லாம் வந்து என்னை அஃபெக்ட் பண்ணுது. பட் இந்த சேம் டைம் வந்து நான் வந்து அவ்வளோதான். அந்த சேம் டைம் வந்து நான் வந்து இதெல்லாம் சொல்லுங்க நீ.
நான் சொல்றேன், இந்த சோசியல் மீடியால வந்து இந்த மாதிரி இந்த ரேசிசம் பத்தி ரொம்ப நியூஸ் எல்லாம் வந்துட்டு இருக்கு. அது உங்க வந்து அது உங்க எழுத்துக்க பாதிக்க வைக்காம பாத்துக்கிறீங்க, அதுதானே?
ஆமா ஆமா. அதோட வேற கவர்மெண்ட் நான் அப்ரிஷியேட் பண்றேன். I appreciate the government because of they no immediate step to சொல்லுங்க. இத சொல்றது.
Okay, he says through the social media, you know, especially particularly about the subject of racism, he's so many conversations, so many people with different opinions and a lot of noise, like just like you said. So, but then he said that, you know, he does his best for that all those opinions not to affect his writing. So you know, he's trying to say that. Then he said that he's also appreciative of the government for coming in swiftly to how to make sure that this issue of racism doesn't, you know, become big.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. Marilyn, how do you deal with that noise?
forgot what I wanted to say. Okay, I don't have a problem with like shutting off things because I generally am the kind of person who has no problem ghosting you like after 3 days of talking. You know, nonstop. So like I think my problem is I don't engage as fully as I want to. So you know, for I didn't really say this before this, but fag hag is sort of a slur, and you know I should have like prefaced it with a content warning or you know a trigger warning. But anyway, so when we're talking about slurs or whatever, I think you know, like I want to delve into all the nuances of it, but I think I was only made aware of a lot of the nuances because people talked to me outside of social media and they actually had private conversations. They texted me, they came to my house, we had like a queer discussion in my living room until like 2 a.m. about, you know, like the community and how we can show love intergenerationally as well as, you know, to each other, how we can be kind to each other on social media. And it's interesting, right, that a lot of the time when social media is seen to kind of go south, or our interactions on social media are seen to kind of crumble and you know, kind of get ugly, right? Our first instinct is, let's take this offline, right? Let's go and sit down somewhere where we can see each other face to face and talk it out. And very interestingly, none of the parties like involved in the conversation that I'm talking about wanted to do that because they felt unsafe. They felt unsafe with each other. They didn't feel like they would be heard. They didn't even feel like that they were part of the same kind of like community that they should, you know, like that they should give support and I guess a good faith interpretation of each other, you know. So that was interesting. I mean, it's not interesting, it's quite disheartening, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it's important to remember that social media is basically a conduit and it enhances, you know, like online interactions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you kind of forego other people's lived experiences, because a lot of people are older, right? A lot of people have lived many years before the advent of social media, and now with social media it's a particular kind of culture that if you're not completely submerged in it, it takes time to learn, right? And so if you don't know how to navigate that, and I think a lot of people are afraid of navigating it wrongly, right? So they come in, they say something wrong, and then everybody jumps on there like, no, you can't say that, you know, like it's horrible. It shows that, you know, your language especially, right? There's a lot of policing of language happening on social media because you can't see each other. All you can see is words, right? And especially as writers, words all we have, but like, oh, you know, suddenly the words that you are using to communicate as a writer are being denigrated, are being, you know, like lambasted as harmful to other people. So how do you then deal with that, right? And how do you refrain from like digging in your heels and be like, I've used this the whole time and like it's been fine before, so why not now, right? So I think that there needs to be a certain flexibility and a recognition that the rules are different, right? On social media, the rules are different. When you're a writer, whether established or not, the rules are different.
Thank you. Yolanda, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with what Marilyn has said? And are you able to also switch off and just ghost me for 3 days when something gets a bit too noisy?
Yeah, I've definitely done a lot of switch off before, and I realized that, you know, say in the past I used to subscribe to a lot of tech and venture capital kind of news, and I got really annoyed with why everyone in the world seemed to be raising $300 million. One day I suddenly woke up and then I deleted all the subscription, and my world had no push notification of any of such content. Now it's like suddenly I'm able to see poetry and graphics and all that. I was like, oh wow, that's active selection. But when Marilyn was talking about this, I realized there are actually two choices being made. One is me as the person to express. I think when she was also talking about how her online identity is a choice. And for me, it's also, I have different identities in different platforms where I try to be authentic, but only presenting a part of me. So that's one choice. And the second choice is what I see. And I realize that choice has always been there. whether it's consciously switching off or subconsciously, because social media that I see, what Marilyn see, what you see, what every single person sees is all different, right? The algorithm behind and the kind of things we consume decides what kind of materials and information I see. So the noise, if I see them, it means to some extent I have decided world where we all have our own curated reality, right? So I think it's just that social media has made that really transparent and actually placed a lot of power in our hands to say, I do not appreciate this noise and I'm not going to respond to it, and it will go away at some point of time because the algorithm knows you don't want it.
Thank you, Yolanda. Samsudin, on this note about identity, which has been spoken quite at length by the other writers, is there a distinction in your identity on social media as Samsudin Said versus Samsudin Said as a writer? And I ask this particularly because of the complexities of the Malay literary world as well. Ada tak perbezaan?
Kalau kita lihat dari segi ada perbezaan dari segi budaya lah, kalau kita lihat sebab cara kita berfikir, cara kita dibesarkan, cara kita melihat sesuatu perkara itu memang berbeza. Tapi sebagai manusia ada perkara persamaan juga kan. Kita tak terhindar daripada perkara yang kata orang kadang-kadang yang meremehkan, benda-benda yang kadang benda kecil jadi dibesar-besarkan kan dalam sosial media. Dan sebagai seorang penulis, selalunya di sinilah sebenarnya bagi kita sebenarnya menterjemahkan apa yang ada dalam fikiran karakter-karakter, watak-watak kehidupan ni yang di sekitar kita ni. Kadang-kadang punca kemarahan tu sebagai seorang pemikir, sebagai seorang penulis, kita melihat apa yang membuat orang tu tiba-tiba meledak kemarahan ni sampai perkara-perkara yang kecil jadi besar. Macam contohnya perkara-perkara yang kita rasa yang di Singapura tu sendiri saya lihat kita hidup dalam pelbagaian bahasa, budaya, bangsa. Dan bila kita lihat kemasukan pendatang-pendatang baru di sini untuk menerima kehidupan di Singapura mungkin mengambil masa kan, dan kita pun harus berfikir bahawa kita pun tak boleh kata orang tu macam melata. Itu yang satunya, kita harus melihat pasal kehidupan di mana-mana begitu juga. Apabila kita berada di negeri orang pun begitu juga. Jadi cara penerimaan mungkin orang Melayu, cara penerimaan orang bangsa-bangsa asing juga mungkin berbeza cara demi kita berodap kan. Jadi saya melihat ini lebih kepada perkara yang saya rasa memerlukan masa kan perkembangannya.
Susah saya nak translate lah.
Okey. Macam mana saya nak cakap dengan keadaan macam kita cakap lebih kepada soal
tak ada saya akan cuba, don't worry, I've got it. I think what he mentioned was I'm doing both the moderating and translating.
Sebab tu kata bila saya nak berbual dalam bahasa Inggeris, bila cakap dalam ini memang agak sukar kan, sebab kita cakap tentang soal-soal yang lain kan.
So what Samsudin said was really there are cultural differences within us, but as human beings, he's identified that, sometimes via social media, we tend to make a mountain out of a molehill. It's something so small and then suddenly becomes so big. And especially in the world right now, there is this hypersensitivity. Suddenly people just get very, very angry, and then it becomes angrier and angrier when you wake up tomorrow. And he cited the example of us accepting new citizens, for example, or people who are foreigners in a little country. But there's this word that I cannot translate, melata. Melata is a very Malay word that I can't translate. It's like, for example, I'll give you the literal translation. If I poke you one time, then you pochot, right? And then you kind of like rattle, and then sometimes you rattle, nonsense comes out of that anger. So I'm not sure whether it's a Malay thing or, some people say only certain cultures melata, like the Koreans actually melata, I'm not sure. But I think he refers to that hypersensitivity, a bit only kababoms, angry. And so so that idea of acceptance, and I think social media we're just still trying to navigate in that space where we convey but portray our angers are concerned. Sorry if my translation is koyak, Pak Samsudin. Sepatutnya awak ada seorang yang lebih fasih daripada saya.
Saya rasa awak sampai ke pantalamat tu sebenarnya. Tak.
Terima kasih. He approves of my translation. I'm mindful of time. Oh my God, you see, every time 1 hour only, I think is not enough, because we can go on and on and on and talk about social media and identities and gossips, you know, and hot stories. But maybe a little something that you can choose. I give you a 3A or 3B question lah. You can choose A or B, okay? Up to you. Then I can test your energy level and your energies from there. You can choose. Can you share with me one moment of A, joy, like, oh, the social media made me so happy because of that, or one moment of B, challenge? You cannot take both, huh? Don't be greedy. You choose only one, a moment of joy or a moment of challenge that social media has posed to you, as a person or as a writer, perhaps. I spin the wheel and I will start with Yolanda.
It starts with a challenge. I think one thing about social media is it does not forget. So it's contrary to what we believe, that is so fast perishing, the content and all that, we get forgotten. But the thing is, if you have said something and people remembered, and some point of time it will hit back at you and say, hey, you said that at that time. So I had written something about, it was a professional piece of advice. And then later on, as it no longer fit, I deleted. And later when I produced some other content, like exactly 6 months later, and person came to me and said, Yolanda, I remember you said that back then. And why the discrepancy? So I had to explain too, like, basically one is that my thoughts and my understanding have evolved, and I've grown, and I felt that the previous piece of opinion was no longer so, complete in my little limited world, right? And therefore I deleted that, but I do not want to deny it. I will still own up what I have said, and here is what I am clarifying. And basically I think I'm just a person who should be allowed to also modify myself. Yeah, but it was a good challenge.
That's great, because there is growth, right? I mean, what you put up something 5 years ago, and your views on that will change in the here and now. Okay, Yusuf, a joy or a challenge?
I usually prefer challenge.
Okay, go for it. One challenge that social media gave you.
ஒரு போட்டி ஒன்று வச்சாங்க. அந்த போட்டியில் வந்து என்னென்னு கேட்டிங்கன்னாக்கா, நம்ம ஒரு டாப்பிக்கில் எழுதணும். அது வந்து ரொம்ப கஷ்டமான டாபிக். அதாவது கம்யூனிட்டிங்கிற டாப்பிக்கில் ஒரு போவம் எழுதணும். அதை ஒரு நான் சேலஞ்சாக எடுத்துக்கிட்டு நான் ஒரு சிறப்பாக பண்ணினேன். அதுக்கு ஒரு ரெக்கக்னிஷன் எனக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்கு. எப்போதுமே வந்து ஜாய்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்கிறத வந்து நான் பெரும்பாலும் நான் வந்து விரும்புறது கிடையாது. ஏன்னா என்னோட ஏஜ், in my age, I don't prefer joys. So I have seen a lot of things. I always quite, very comfortable and always very interesting to take the challenge in life. That's why ஏதாவது சேலஞ்சுன்னு ஒன்று வந்துச்சுன்னு சொன்னாக்க நான் அந்த சேலஞ்சை தான் நான் ப்ரிஃபர் பண்ணுறேன். அதில் வந்து முடிஞ்ச வரைக்கும் அதை வெற்றி பெறதுக்கு நான் முயற்சி பண்ணுவேன். அது மாதிரி சமீபத்தில் வந்து ஒரு போவம் எழுதி அந்த சேலஞ்சில் நான் வின் பண்ணேன். எனக்கு ஒரு ரெக்கக்னிஷன் கிடைச்சிச்சு. புரியுதா நிர்மலா? சொல்லுங்க
சார். அவங்க கேக்குறாங்க, நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது, சொல்லிட்டேன். நாளைக்கு நீங்க தமிழ்ல சொல்லுங்க, இங்கிலீஷ்ல சொல்லுங்க. சொல்லிட்டேன்.
சந்தோஷம் கொடுத்திருக்கா இல்ல ரொம்ப கஷ்டத்தை கொடுத்திருக்கான்னு கேக்குறாங்க.
சொல்லிட்டேன். சேலஞ்ச் தான் சொல்லிட்டேன்.
அப்படி சொல்லணுமா?
அப்படிதான் சொன்னேன். இப்ப கேட்கலையா நீங்க சொன்னதை?
என்ன சொன்னீங்க சார்? இந்த எப்படி
இல்ல எனக்கு
சோஷியல் மீடியா உங்களுக்கு எப்படி சேலஞ்ச் கொடுத்திருக்கு? சோஷியல்
மீடியாவில் எனக்கு சில போட்டிகள் வருது. உன்னால முடியுமா? புரியுதா? சோஷியல் மீடியாவில் எனக்கு சில போட்டிகள் வருது. உன்னால இதை செய்ய முடியுமா, செய்ய முடியாது அப்படின்னு வருது. அப்ப நான் சேலஞ்சா எடுத்துக்கிட்டு நான் செய்யறேன். You understand what I said?
Okay.
I'm seeing Nirmala is very challenged to
Okay, I will speak in English. No, I will.
Nirmala.
Okay, he says when the
No, I will tell. See, I always prefer challenge. Because I can speak. No, I will tell you.
Okay.
I always prefer challenge. Because sometimes, I am forced to comment on something, some topic. I am forced to write a poem on some topic. It is coming in the social media. I take it as a challenge and do it successfully. I get the recognition also.
Okay, Ken, I will accept that response then. And I think that's a very spirited thing. But never mind. We'll move along with the question. What is one thing that has given you joy through social media or has completely challenged you through social media? Marilyn, I see you pondering.
I'm just listening. Joy. I think it's important to talk about joy because I don't think we talk about it enough. And I think that like pleasure and joy is very radical and transformative, right? So I think like, and I mean, as a writer, I also kind of tend to dwell on the spiteful or the ugly or whatever. So let's talk about joy, right? So I think one moment of joy that emerged from my from a challenge that was presented online was when I tried to submit a little queer video or a video of a performance, a comedic video to an online basically a queer talent time, and it got rejected because they were like, there's some content in there that's potentially inflammatory, so we're going to take it off, and then we don't want the police to come after us, we don't have the resource for lawyers, I said whatever. So I took it down and I kind of like reworked it a little bit, not much, and then I reposted it on my own social media, and I think that was maybe a lot more exciting for me because I could see all of my friends kind of digesting it and reacting to it in their own time and in their own way, right? So, and then you can, on Instagram now, you can see how people sort of like share your stories, and then you can see what they say, and it's very hilarious because like they're not talking to you, but it's like you're eavesdropping on somebody else's conversation about you. It's very hilarious, and I think that to be able to witness that kind of like, like this gave me so much pleasure, but not have it said to you, but like, quietly kind of like see their reaction to it on the side. It's quite, it's quite pleasurable in its own way.
I'm going to hold that in my memory because never mind, because I had an encounter with a Twitter where someone said something really horrible, and then I don't know how to find joy in that, but I think I will, because that person probably didn't know that I was reading it, and even if it was horrible, I am chuckling at one corner and thinking about what Marilyn has just shared with me. Pak Samsudin, adakah sesuatu yang anda ingin berkongsi dengan kita tentang sesuatu yang manis atau sesuatu yang agak susah atau pahit ataupun challenging, mencabar ataupun susah di social media yang anda telah mengalami?
Tak boleh pilih dua, satu.
Tak boleh, jangan tamak.
Tapi saya lihat lebih pada kegembiraan sebenarnya, sebab saya sebagai seorang penulis, mungkin tumpuan saya lebih pada dunia sastra sebenarnya. Saya lihat dengan adanya sosial media sebenarnya memberi ruang, walaupun seperti mana yang saya katakan tadi, suasana pandemik sebenarnya memberi satu kayu ukur. Selalu kita berkata bahawa macam dunia sastra ni semakin dilupakan, semakin ramai yang tak minat. Kita menggunakan kayu ukur apabila setiap seminar atau forum dijalankan berdasarkan daripada kedatangan. Tapi kalau saya lihat daripada apa yang berlaku pada hari ini, contohnya baru-baru ini seorang teman melancarkan buku puisinya, dan saya tengok viewership tu sampai 1,000 viewership. Itu menunjukkan keprihatinan tentang bahawa sastra ni sebenarnya masih lagi diminati walaupun kurang diajar di sekolah-sekolah. Dan itu yang saya ada satu kegembiraan yang kita rasa, yang kita tak terfikir, yang tak terjangka, bahawa perkara yang kita rasa seolah benda tu dah pupus, tapi sebenarnya perkara tu sedang berkembang sebenarnya di alam maya ni. Saya melihat begitu.
Wow. Wow. Pak Samsudin shares the joy of seeing how in this world that we live in a launch of a book was done online, his friend's book, and there was 1,000 viewership and that attendance brought joy in him, seeing that how literature is, despite what we're facing right now in the Malay literary world, for that matter, is appreciated, even though it's not taught as actively in school as we would like it to be. Yet the viewership was something astoundingly inspiring and motivating a writer such as him within the Malay literary world. Betul, Pak Samsudin?
Betul, amat betul sekali.
What are you looking forward to tomorrow when you read your I'm a Facebook person, so whatever social media platform that you're on, what is one thing you're looking forward to tomorrow? Last question for today, when you wake up and reach up for your phone. Samsudin.
Tentu sekali tentang dunia yang indah. Bila kita cakap sekarang tentang dunia pandemik, semua orang mengharap bahawa perkara ini akan segera berlalu. Dan itulah yang kita ingin kita lihat. Andai kata kalau pagi kita bangun, kita dapat berita bahawa pandemik telah berakhir dan kita akan hidup seperti biasa. Itu yang memang saya harapkan dari masa ke semasa.
He's hoping tomorrow when he reaches out for his phone, the message is one, he sees news on social media, a very good news like the pandemic is over and we can continue with our lives. So something good about this world because of the world that we live in right now. Yolanda, tomorrow, what are you looking forward to when you reach out for social media as you scroll your phone?
I'm not going to wait till tomorrow.
Sorry?
I'm not going to wait till tomorrow.
Why wait till tomorrow? Today, you're going to look forward to something. Okay.
Yeah. I would. So generally, I look out for something that makes this brain work. Some interesting things to make me think. Yeah.
Thank you. And Yusuf, what are you looking forward to tomorrow when you reach out for your phone or turn on a computer onto social media?
நாளைக்கு காலையில வந்து நீங்க எந்திரிக்கும் போது போன் எடுத்துட்டு என்ன விஷயம் சோஷியல் மீடியால உங்களுக்கு கேட்க ஆர்வமா இருக்கு, உங்களுக்கு வந்து விருப்பமா இருக்கு, என்ன கேட்கணும்னு விருப்பமா இருக்கு?
Yusuf, you're on mute.
நான் ஒரு வாட்டர் கலர் ஆர்டிஸ்ட். டெய்லி வந்து நான் டெய்லி இல்லை, ஒரு 2-3 டேஸ் ஒரு தடவை நான் வந்து போஸ்டிங் பண்ணுறேன் என்னுடைய பெயிண்டிங்கை. புரியுதா நிர்மலா? புரியுதா பேசுறது? புரியுதா?
புரியுது.
2-3 டேஸ் ஒன்ஸ் நான் வந்து பெயிண்டிங்கை நான் போஸ்ட் பண்ணுறேன். என்னுடைய பெயிண்டிங் வந்து ஆல் ஓவர் த வேர்ல்டு, கொரியா, அப்புறம் சைனா, ஜப்பான், இது மாதிரி பல நாடுகள்லேருந்து எனக்கு வந்து எனக்கு ஃபேன் இருக்காங்க. அவங்க என்ன கமெண்ட் போடுறாங்கிறத பார்க்கறதுக்கு நான் ரொம்ப இதாக இருப்பேன். அது மாதிரி இன்னைக்கு ஒரு பெயிண்டிங் நான் போட்டிருக்கேன். டுமாரோ மார்னிங் ஐ எம் வெரி ஆன்சியஸ் டு லுக் அட் their postings about my painting.
He's a watercolor artist, so he paints a lot of pictures. So he always posts it. So people, he even have fans in behind. You can see some of his works. He has fans in Korea, China, and Japan. So he posted a painting today. So he's looking forward to the comments when he receives it tomorrow.
Best lah. Marilyn, what about you?
Hi. I'm looking forward to reading something extremely deranged and bizarre. That's
Yes.
what I seek out on social media all the time.
And so we'll close this. I want to thank Marilyn, Yusuf, Samsudin, and Yolanda for being a part of today's panel. Of course, we want to thank National Library Board and the Singapore Book Council for this. And I hope you enjoyed our little chit-chat session about my life through posts and tweets.